working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. A powerful 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit Turkey and Syria, killing dozens, leveling buildings while people were still in their sleep, and sending tremors that were felt as far away as the island of Cyprus. The United States shooting down a Chinese balloon that was traveling across the U.S. earlier, spotted over the parts of North and South Carolina. A 74-year-old man died while another was hurt when a fire hit 19 houses in Barangay Bambang, Taguig City on Sunday morning. And this year's Balikatan military exercises between American and Filipino troops will take place in April. First in our news, a powerful 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit Turkey and Syria today, killing dozens, leveling buildings while people were still in their sleep, and sent tremors that were felt as far away as the island of Cyprus. Take a look. Now, local officials in Turkey put the initial death toll at 53, although it threatened to climb substantially higher because it caught most people while they were still at home sleeping. At least 42 people also died in government-controlled parts of northern Syria, according to state media. The quake struck at 4:17 a.m. local time at a depth of about 17.9 kilometers, according to the U.S. agency, with a 6.7 magnitude aftershock striking 15 minutes later. Turkey's AFAD Emergency Service Center put the first quake's magnitude at 7.4. The earthquake was one of the most powerful to hit the region in at least a century. I convey my best wishes to all our citizens who were affected by the earthquake. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan tweeted. Syrian state television, meanwhile, reported that a building near Latakia on the west coast of Syria had collapsed. Pro-government media said several buildings had partially collapsed in Hama, central Syria, with civil defense and firefighters working to pull out survivors out of the rubble. Raed Ahmed, who heads Syria's National Earthquake Center, told pro-government radio that this was historically the biggest earthquake recorded in the history of Center. Snasi Gurur, an earthquake expert with Turkey's Academy of Sciences, urged local officials to immediately check the region's dams for cracks to avert potentially catastrophic floodings. Turkey is in one of the world's most active earthquake zones. The Turkish region of Düzce suffered a 7.4 magnitude earthquake in 1999, the worst to hit Turkey in decades. Now we're getting news that about more than 100 have already been killed in the earthquake. Meanwhile, the United States bringing down or shooting down a Chinese balloon that was traveling across the U.S., earlier spotted over the parts of North and South Carolina. Let's listen in.
From your national. I told them to shoot it down on Wednesday. But the recommendation.
They said to me, let's wait till the safest place to do it.
What does this mean for China?
Now, by late Saturday afternoon, the Federal Aviation Administration had opened the airspace off the coast of the Carolinas after 3 southeastern airports were temporarily shut down over a national security effort. Another suspected Chinese spy balloon was seen over Latin America, according to the Pentagon on Friday, without providing details. Now, the balloon had flown over parts of the northwestern U.S., including the state of Montana, that are home to sensitive air bases and strategic nuclear missiles in underground silos. But after Saturday's operation, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs expressed China's strong dissatisfaction and said the U.S. used force to attack our civilian unmanned airship, which is an obvious overreaction. We express solemn protest against this move by the U.S. side, China's Defense Ministry spokesperson Tan Keifei said in a statement on Sunday afternoon, local time. China reserves the right to use necessary means to deal with similar situations. Despite China claiming it to be a civil aircraft that got off course, U.S. officials insist that it is not the case. In tonight's other news, Indonesia told major powers not to use Southeast Asia as a proxy for their rivalries at the start of a two-day talks between regional foreign ministers. Southeast Asia's biggest economy is the chair of the 10-member Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, for 2023, and will later this year host the bloc's annual leaders' meetings, which are typically also joined by China and the U.S. Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi. Take a look.
The meeting, President Jokowi underlined two important points. First, ASEAN must not be a proxy to any side. ASEAN centrality and unity must be safeguarded and maintained as our main modality.
Now, disputes over the South China Sea have pitted some ASEAN members against Beijing and boosted sympathy for U.S. opposition to China's growing assertiveness. But others have shown support on issues in line with the Asian superpower. Another issue that dominated talks was the crisis in military-ruled Myanmar, which has been in turmoil since the army seized power in 2021. There has been little movement on the 5-point consensus agreed between ASEAN and the junta in April 2021 that called for an immediate end to violence and dialogue between the military and rebels. But President Widodo emphasized that the 5-point consensus of the ASEAN leaders should be the main agreement to assist the resolution of the problem in Myanmar.
Just concluded the second. Indonesia has proposed, and the issue is deliberated on the implementation plan of the 5-point of consensus. Broad support was received from all members to this plan. This plan is very important for ASEAN, in particular the chair, as a guidance to address the situation in Myanmar in a united manner. It shows a strong unity of ASEAN members to implement 5-point of consensus. Colleagues, I'm happy to inform you that the ASEAN meetings in the last 2 days have been constructive, substantive, and more importantly, productive.
Now, the junta remains an ASEAN member, but has been barred from top-level summits over a lack of progress on a plan by the bloc to achieve peace between the military and Myanmar's anti-coup movement. Myanmar's Foreign Minister Than Shwe, appointed this week, wasn't present at the ASEAN talks on Friday, the bloc having declined to invite a junta member and only requesting a non-political representative, an offer rejected by Naypyidaw. Convicted pedophile and former rocker Gary Glitter was released from a jail in Britain after serving half of a 16-year sentence. The 79-year-old singer, who had a string of chart hits in the 1970s, was convicted in 2015 for sexually abusing 3 schoolgirls. He was freed from the low-security jail in Portland, southern England, automatically after serving half his sentence. According to the PA News Agency, he will now be subject to license conditions applicable to all convicted sex offenders, it said. Glitter, whose real name is Paul Gadd, was convicted of 1 count of attempted rape, 4 counts of indecent assault, and 1 count of sexual intercourse with a girl under the age of 13. Glitter was at the height of his fame when he attacked his victims, and investigators said he targeted young girls who were in awe of him. The singer was first jailed in 1999 when he admitted possessing 4,000 images of child pornography. He was deported from Cambodia in 2002 and convicted in Vietnam in 2006 of sexually abusing 2 girls, for which he was sentenced to 3 years in jail. On returning to Britain, Glitter was placed on the sex offenders register for life. Glitter shot to fame in the 1970s and had over 20 hit singles, including I'm the Leader of the Gang I Am, I Love You, Love Me, Love, and Come On, Come In, Get On. In other news, the Department of Energy is optimistic that the country will be able to achieve its long-term renewable energy goals through the policy reforms of the Marcos administration. During a Laging Handa public briefing, DOE Undersecretary Rowena Guevara said that President Marcos Jr. has been keen on implementing policy reforms that would help the country to increase the share of renewable energy in the energy mix to 35% by 2030 and to 50% by 2040. Among the initial reforms of the administration on renewable energy is allowing the full ownership for renewable projects. Take a look.
Dahil po dito sa ating full 100% foreign ownership for renewable energy, sa tayak ng Department of Energy, makakaya nating ma-fulfill yung target natin na by 2040 ay 50% na tayong renewable energy. Yung mga policy na ginagawa natin, syempre dahil bago pa lang itong pagkasabi about the renewable energy investment, nakikipag-usap ang Department of Energy sa SEC para syempre dadaan sila doon at saka sa Department of Trade and Industry Board of Investments for the incentives and benefits for renewable energy companies. Ngayong nagtaas ang presyo ng oil globally, nakita natin ang epekto niyan sa mga electric bill natin, no? Nagtaasan ang ating electric bill dahil hindi tayo energy secure in terms of electricity. Pagka napadami natin ang renewable energy at nakikita naman natin na mas mababa siya kumpara kunyari sa diesel-powered electricity, bababa ang ating singil sa kuryente. Kanya nga lang, hindi kaagad naman na itatayo itong mga planta ng renewable energy. For example, yung mga solar, kaya yan ng 1 to 3 years. Pero kunyari yung offshore wind, mga 5 to 8 years bago yan maitayo. Pero ang maganda, tayo sa Pilipinas ay blessed with a lot of renewable energy potential resources. So kunyari, sa wind resources pa lang, kaya nating patakbuhin ang buong Luzon. Ma-harness lang natin. Kaya sana ang ating mga investors, both local and international, ay sana mag-invest sa renewable energy. Private sector ang nagda-drive ng energy security ng ating bansa. So we are encouraging many of our traditional partners in the generation sector to invest more in renewable energy. At kung posible nga sana mag-transition yung iba from conventional energy sources to renewable energy. Tapos, noong December, na-approve na natin yung Transmission Development Plan ng National Grid Corporation of the Philippines at nakasalang ngayon sa Energy Regulatory Commission yung tinatawag na 4th Regulatory Reset at susunod na dyan yung 5th Regulatory Reset. Pag nangyari yan, ang mga proyekto sa transmission lines ng NGCP ay nakalista na doon sa Transmission Development Plan at maaasahan na ng ating mga investors sa generation at sa distribution.
Now, earlier, the Board of Investment said it approved a $360 billion offshore or 360 billion peso offshore wind energy project of Danish renewable energy company Copenhagen Energy AS and Petro Green Energy Corp. The administration is also setting up green lanes on strategic investments to fast-track the implementation of these projects that are expected to benefit the Filipino people. In tonight's other news, the benchmark index of international food commodity prices declined in January for the 10th consecutive month, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Meanwhile, in its new cereal supply and demand brief, also released on Friday, FAO raised its forecast for world cereal production in 2022. However, global cereal supplies are still forecast to tighten 2022 to 2023. Take a look.
The world food commodity prices declined in January for the 10th consecutive month. The FAO Food Price Index averaged 131.2 points in January. That's 0.8% lower than the previous month. That's December of 2022. The Food and Agriculture Organization says that low domestic prices could result in small cutbacks in wheat plantings in the Russian Federation, the world's largest exporter, while severe war-induced impacts in Ukraine were estimated to reduce winter wheat area planting by about 40%.
Food prices hit an all-time high in 2022 as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in late February and the subsequent pressure on the trade in key commodities such as wheat and sunflower oil. General prices had begun to rise after the pandemic between 2020 and 2021, but the annual highs of these years were still some way shy of 2022 ceiling. In the southern hemisphere countries, most of the 2023 coarse grain crops have been sown. Brazil may post record maize plantings, while those in Argentina could decrease due to low soil moisture levels. Weather conditions augur well for maize yield prospects in South Africa. World cereal utilization in 2022 to 2023 is now forecast to drop by 0.7% from the previous year. A 74-year-old man died while another was hurt when a fire hit 19 houses in Barangay Bambang, Taguig City on Sunday morning. The fatality was identified as Conrado Garcia, who was trapped inside his house after the fire struck at 6:48 a.m. and immediately spread to 14 other houses, according to the Bureau of Protection report. The blaze was put off at 7:11 a.m., damage estimated at 1.7 million pesos. Jonil Garcia, whose age was not immediately known, suffered second-degree burns on his left hand and forehead. Investigators are still looking into the cause of the fire that affected at least 19 families. Government authorities provided food packs and toiletries to the victims, who sought temporary shelter from their relatives and neighbors. The World Health Organization said a UN-led global initiative to tackle breast cancer could save 2.5 million lives by 2040. Take a look.
Each year, more than 2.3 million women are diagnosed with breast cancer, and this making it the most common cancer in the world. Breast cancer survival is 50% or less in many low and middle income countries, and greater than 90% for those able to receive the best care in high income countries.
We really cannot avoid breast cancer if we're going to address cancer in countries. It's the most common cancer among men and women together. It is the most likely reason that a woman will die of cancer globally. It is the most common cancer among women in 86% of countries, and it is the number 1 or 2 cause of cancer-related deaths in 95% of countries. So having a framework to build upon over the coming years is an essential beginning point.
Launched to coincide with World Cancer Day last February 4, the UN agency's Global Breast Cancer Initiative provides guidance to governments on early detection, timely diagnosis, and treatment. This year's Balikatan military exercises between American and Filipino troops will take place in April. The AFP and the U.S. Armed Forces are once again holding the 38th iteration of annual bilateral Balikatan exercises. Although this is a bilateral activity, the AFP takes the lead in planning and execution, supported by the U.S. Armed Forces with other like-minded nations as observers, according to Armed Forces of the Philippines spokesperson, Colonel Medel Aguilar, in a statement tonight. Aguilar said Balikatan 38 2023 will help the AFP in developing its external defense capabilities and fulfilling its obligations to other countries in the region in terms of countering terrorism and other security threats. The AFP neither indicated the exact dates of the exercises nor gave an exact number of participating American and Filipino military personnel for this year's exercises. However, it said the maneuvers will be held in the areas of jurisdiction of the Northern Luzon Command, Visayas Command, and Western Command. AFP Public Affairs Office Chief Colonel Jory Baclor said the Balikatan exercises are for the second week of April, but added that this is still tentative and is still to be finalized. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast of ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times.